morning. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Hampton Bays Water District Commissioners on this 4th day of February, 2021. Please rise if you're able and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. All right. I'll ask our clerk, Cindy Schermeyer, to call the roll.
Supervisor Schneiderman,
Here.
Councilwoman Lofstad,
Here.
Councilman Martell,
Here.
Councilman Bouvier,
Here.
Councilman Schiavone.
Here.
All right. So we're all here. There was some bleeding or some noise coming in from one of the lines. So if that's one of your computers, I ask you to just mute when you're not talking if you have background noise. So we're meeting this morning about the Hampton Bays Water District. This is our routine meeting. So there's plenty to discuss. And I see we have James Cappers here.
Yeah, Rich and John be trying to
Who
get
is the Assistant Water District Superintendent. Do we have Rich
is coming in now.
Rich is coming in now. And what about John Collins?
He's also coming in.
All right, so we'll give it a minute to get these gentlemen into our Zoom meeting. How are you, Rich? Or James, sorry. James, how you doing over there?
Good. How you doing?
Good. How's the baby?
Doing well.
Good.
15 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. I see John is with us now.
Good morning.
I think Rich's video is not working, but he'll be able to speak audio wise.
All right. All right. So we have do we have a particular agenda to cover? Is there some topics? I don't have that in front of me, what we're going to cover.
I sent over a basic agenda. Basically, the topics read as follows. Summarize 2020 in regards to the pumpage and billing. Number 2 will be talking about the scheduled projects we have going on for this year. 3, this letters to the public regarding water usage. 4 is an update on the project at the Ford Field regarding the tank and the iron treatment. And then 5, we'll talk about the deferral letter and the PFOS.
Okay, yeah, I got it now too in front of me. All right, so yeah, let's James, are you going to lead the presentation?
Sure, I'll kick it off.
Okay.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Since we talked last in October of last year, some topics that we touched on and looking to cover this year was one, the main topic is our pumpage from last year. Last year we had a record year, as most water districts across the island did, given the circumstances of COVID and people being out here earlier and irrigation usage and so forth. But we pumped 1.2 billion gallons of water last year. That's our record. I went back as far as we had, and we've never touched that quota before. So that was 175 million more than 2019, and then the 2018, 120 million more, and 2017, 130 million more. So we've always increased every year. We're increasing our pumpage.
So it's about percentage-wise, was about 10% more?
Yeah, we're roughly 10%. Every year it seems to increase like 10% more. With that, we had the rate change, the rate schedule change, the increases, roughly $615,000 more in billing purposes came in. That was an increase of, like I said, 615, which is the increase of consumption billed over 15 million billed out. So
that's good. So that was 600.
Yeah, very busy year. We were able to maintain water levels here. Our pressure issues were down tremendously from 2018. We didn't have any issues of, or many issues of discolored water like we had back in 2018. Having all our wells online, up and running at 100%.
Can I ask you, James, on that issue of pressure and discoloration, you had more water consumption than you did the year before. So what do you attribute the improvements to pressure and water clarity to?
Well, remember in 2018, we had 3 wells down. So that changed the dynamic and the performance of the water district tremendously, having those 3 wells down. Where the center of town was being fed through the outskirts, having those wells in the center of town pushing out helped out tremendously. We did that, also did that connection on Canoe Place Road and Montauk Highway. That contributed to benefiting from it. Also, I believe we did a better job last year, and we're going to continue this year for water conservation in regards to irrigation systems. We pushed hard in the beginning of the year, and we're going to do the same this year to try to get people not to water between those peak hours of people getting up to use the showers and such. So that's pretty much what we contribute to having most of those issues during the summer, is the irrigation usage by our customers.
What about in terms of discoloration, did you increase your flushing?
Yeah, we did. We haven't done it in a while. We did twice a year. Last year we did it in April, and then we did it again in October.
So that may have improved the water color.
Yeah, and our October flushing wasn't that bad. We were done a lot quicker than we were in April. So it goes to show that our April flushing was very successful, and that our October was just like a little bit of a maintenance flushing that we had.
What about wellhead treatment? Do you think that might have also helped too?
Last year we only really got to do plant 2, obviously because of the way that pump was situated in 2-1, where it had the column wearing away. It wasn't really taken away from the performance of the well. It was more of a preventative maintenance. But this year was one of the topics, is one of our scheduled projects, which is ongoing right now. We're rehabbing 3-1, which on the pump curve, the pump performance test that they do to determine which one that it needs to rehab, that one did the worst, so to speak, on the pump curve level. So with doing that, they found, the well was, I don't know the exact age, but it's been in the ground a while, and it needs maintenance. It needs a little TLC, and it's not tremendous maintenance. It's just basic stuff. They're doing a new bowl, suction pipes, shaft couplings, stuffing boxes, gears, bearings, and stuff, and that will be able to bring that well up to its peak performance and be able to perform a lot better.
Has there been any improvement in water pressure east of the canal?
We still have issues over there. It's still going to be issues, obviously, until we have that redundancy main over there or another route. But I think that redundancy main is really going to solve the problem over there.
Okay.
We could tell the people to, not irrigate, but we can only go so far as telling people without enforcing it. They're still going to have issues no matter what. Was it better? I would believe it was a little bit better last year because of our water conservation efforts. Like I said, we're going to continue that this year, and hopefully give them what they're paying for. And then eventually, if we go forth with that drill, then we would really be in a better spot for the east side of the canal.
Have you had we're still on the topic of pumping and billing.
Yep.
We put new rates in place last year.
Yep.
And plus you had 10% more consumption. So the combination produced about $600,000 more in revenue, correct?
Right.
Have you gotten much resistance from your customers to the increase in rates?
No, I would say maybe 1 or 2 offhand have called and just really wanted a breakdown of what the rates were. Out of 7,400 customers, I believe 1 or 2 calls is not bad at all.
Okay, and then we went up again with rates just recently as well, right?
13%. I'm not sure. Len could probably answer exactly what it was, but I think it was somewhere around 13%. I think the increase was overall
for 2021, right?
in the beginning, the first half, unless there's going to be another one at the second half.
All right. Anybody else have questions for James on just the for James on the subject of pumpage and billing in 2020? All right. Do you want to then move on to the next project?
Yeah, our project schedule for this year, we have ongoing projects. Obviously, the Ford Field is going on. That we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But right now, we scheduled a leak detection. We put in our budget for last year to have a leak detection survey done of the system. We haven't had it done before. It's really required by the DEC, and it's good to show good faith that we're looking into conserving water. Water conservation is key for DEC, especially when we want to go for another well. They want to show that what is our steps, what are we taking, what are we doing to conserve water, and this goes a long way. And also good, it benefits us to see if there's anything hidden underneath the ground that was not surfacing, if there's a leak that is happening and we don't know about it. Because obviously we really don't know until it surfaces or we get a bunch of dirty water complaints, which we haven't. So it's going to be interesting to find out what they find, if they find anything. But they're starting February 8th, and they say it could take anywhere up to 2 to 3 weeks. They don't plan on being here for 2 to 3 weeks. They think about a week. They're going to work through the night. They're going to put all their listening devices on our valves or hydrants, service connections, water mains, everything. John could probably explain a little bit in more detail how they actually perform the leak detection, but that's the main one that's starting next week. Any questions on the leak detection? If you got
Yeah, I'm wondering, I guess, John, if there are leaks, can they give an estimate on how bad the leaks are and the location?
They in past surveys I've seen, they'll get him within a couple feet of where the leak is, and they can estimate within 5 gallons a minute on how big the leak is. So I've seen leaks that are, they've classified as, less than 5 gallons a minute and up to 100 gallons a minute or even beyond that. But yeah, they'll classify quantity and location.
Okay, pretty good.
Any other questions on leak detection? All right, James, continue on with projects.
We have our plant 2 and plant 1 tank scheduling to be they're washed and coated with the protection. Obviously, mildew on the tank starts corrosion, so we want to get that mildew off. We're going to have them both washed. We have them done in the past by the same company. They have them both washed, and then they put a protection coat of, like a clear coat over the top of them to prevent them from any further corrosion or damage. And it also looks nice. We have some, pretty tall towers that stick up in the middle of town, and it goes a long way to show a nice clean tank for the Hampton-based customers. So that's scheduled. Once the weather breaks, they'll usually be out here, and they're usually a day or two for each tank, and then they're pretty much turned around and gone.
That's just the exterior of the tank, right?
Right. Yep.
Okay.
We also have, which I believe John can go in a little bit further, is the carbon change out. We're looking to do that sooner than later. We're waiting on, I believe, the resolution to pass that okays us to have that started.
I think we did. Didn't we pass that resolution?
I know we passed the funding for it. I don't know if they ever advertised it.
I think we passed the bond. And
Yeah.
You had to have a plan, and then we did a public hearing, and that was done the last meeting. I think then there's a 30-day waiting period or something like that. But you can move ahead with the bidding, that's for sure.
Yeah, did anybody have any questions on how the carbon change out or anything with that? We've gone over it a bunch of times and how and why, and needed to ask John in the process or how to turn around or anything. I know we explained it before last meeting and such, but that's got to be done this year, obviously, because we don't want the breakthrough to go into system. We're just trying to prevent that. We're in the
Are
semi.
we ending up with we're going to get new carbon, or are we cleaning the carbon that's there? We're getting new carbon, right?
New carbon.
New carbon, yep.
So where does the old carbon go?
The old carbon is taken back to a landfill. It's either disposed of, it's either incinerated, or they do something called reactivate it, where they burn off all the old contaminants and then they sell it to like a maybe an environmental treatment system, something that's non-potable, that
Can
they reuse it.
Maybe this is more a question for Jim, but can we make sure that we're fully indemnified, that the company that's taking that carbon, if they don't dispose of it properly, we won't, it won't come back to haunt us in the future in some way? You understand the issue, Jim, right?
Yes, I certainly understand the issue. Yeah.
So just let's make sure that they're properly insured and we're fully indemnified.
Absolutely.
What's the, James, what's the vendor? Where did you get the contract from?
I think it's Calgon, right?
We
John?
haven't awarded the bid yet.
No,
No, I thought we had prices or quotes or
I think it
something.
was, I believe, through Calgon. Calgon.
yeah,
Carbon.
we have prices, we have estimates from Calgon, yes.
Oh, okay.
Calgon Carbon.
So I have a question on the disposal of the filtering material, the carbon source, Jim, James, or John. There are some projects that are going on that are using biochar as a filtration medium. And I understand that some of the retreated filtration media that's cooked and degassed and is obviously not used for potable. It has no potable use for potable water, but some of that use is used in, they're actually, that material is placed into socks and other things to place in fresh water to absorb some of the nutrients that are runoff. And I'm just curious, I'd really like to know, where that used media goes to. So when you get into that with Len and trying to find out, the legalities of that for us, I'd also like to know, what their resourcing is, because it's used over and over again in different places. That makes sense? Based on the science, does not?
Makes sense, but they are actually reactivating carbon and using it in potable water applications. As part of our bid, we are looking at taking the carbon we have, reactivating it, and bring it right back. You usually can get about 3 to 4 reacts before the carbon has lost its effectiveness. But so we are looking at that.
So that's one of the possibilities in our bid, is to reuse the carbon?
Reactivate it, yes.
Well, that means what, burning off all the contaminants?
Yes.
And so you'd have to remove it, heat
Take it away. Yep.
and then they might give it to us back. No, but you're saying that you can only do that four times.
3 or 4 times,
Well, how
depending
do we
on the contaminant load.
I mean, it concerns me a little bit that even if we get rid of that carbon, we get new carbon. How do we know that the new carbon we're getting hasn't been somebody's old carbon reactivated and doesn't have as much ability to filter out PFAS?
The specification, the spec calls for virgin carbon. Unused, yeah, it specifically says that if we're not going to react, we want virgin acid rinse carbon.
Yeah, but I thought that I had read that the words unused, and you just used that a minute ago, was part of that. So that it is a concern. And I think any vendor that we deal with should be able to give us a chain of custody on these materials that we're using.
Oh, without a doubt, you'll get a chain of custody. When you dispose of the old stuff, the district gets a chain of custody back. It shows exactly where the final resting place was.
All right.
It's
Thanks,
a real
John.
concern though, because though we might be able to get cheaper carbon that's, been used, but then we might be doing this again in, 3 years. because we just didn't have as much lifespan to it. So, it's not an issue that we normally would focus on because it's sort of outside of our wheelhouse, but the carbon that we got last time, was that virgin carbon? Is there a reason why we didn't get as much life as we had thought? Who knows?
What we got last time was virgin carbon. The life is twofold. One is our contaminant level doubled. And two is that we are changing a little bit earlier than needed. We could probably get 1 or 2 more months of, we could probably get a few more months of runtime out of this. It's just, we don't want to be exhausted come, August 1st and,
I
be caught.
understand. Okay, but I thought we should have gotten a couple more years out of it.
Quite honestly, it's such a new, the removal of perfluorinated bicarbonate is kind of a new thing. Even the carbon companies don't have a lot of data on it. Our bed volumes was a little lower than we would have expected. You're right. And I even expected that we'd get at least another season out of it. Yes.
John, does this material come with some kind of performance standards? X amount of PFAS going in, it'll remove X amount of PFAS? We're making the presumption that one set is better than the other. I agree with that philosophy, but I'm wondering, have they done testing on the performance of the actual amount of PFAS that can be removed?
That's something that's a lot of research is going on into it now. I mean, if you talk about volatiles, they have ample amount of research, but PFAS, PFOA, these perfluorinated, it really only became an issue within the last couple years. So it's like, I think it's new for everybody, including the carbon suppliers. So, they've done enough research to know that it does remove the contaminant, but they're also doing, other research to determine, is there a better carbon for it? We use something called the F300 AR. There's a carbon out there called F400 that, it could cost, a couple cents more per pound, but you could get a longer life out of that carbon. So we're looking.
Sorry, go ahead.
So we're looking into that now, and actually our bid we are going to look at the REACT, we are going to look at the F300, and we are going to look at something called F400 or equals. And when they all come in, they have to give us a expected bed volume or life, so we can make what we think is the best decision for the district, economically and, for the public as well.
Julie?
And for the record, the water that was coming out of the filter was clean. It was very good, right?
Non-detect.
Julie?
Kind of follow up on Councilman Scavoni's question. Do they also do, or are they doing the studies on the previously used carbon to see how long that may last as compared to the two types of the virgin carbon?
Yes, and everything points to that the reactivated carbon can last as long as virgin carbon. It's just you have to get the buy-in from the health departments to use it. So if it turns out that that's the best thing and we're going to get equal or similar life out of it and the cost is there, then we'll approach the health department and make sure that they're okay with us using that. So.
And these studies, it's not like, a study that ended yesterday. It's a study that we can depend upon.
It's studies that are ongoing now. And, I would suspect that, data that they get from Hampton Bays Water District is going into these studies. So they're looking at everything. Like I said, it's perfluorinated really only became an issue to New York and other places within the last couple of years. So, we know it works. We just don't know, it could come out. I could be on this call 3 years from now, and I'm going to recommend to you that you switch away from carbon and go to resins. But right now, the resins aren't there. They're researching it, determining it, but the resin could be the way to go in the future, especially when some of these short chains, short chain perfluorinated get regulated.
Thanks.
So, John, a question with that and the sourcing of carbon filtration. The Suffolk County Water Authority, I'm not sure what grade they use, if it's 300 or 400 or where their sourcing is, but I imagine that right now they're using quite a quantity of that. I'm wondering if there's any potential for sharing some of that service, if they're doing that under contract, if we can avail ourselves of that contract cost and sourcing. Is that something you guys have looked into at all?
Typically, when you use a water authority contract, you get their pricing, but they put a 30%
Surcharge?
yeah, okay. I was going to say VIG, but they put a 30% surcharge on it because they, in the sense that we did all the work getting it, and if you're going to reap the benefits, we're going to charge you a little something for it. So we tend to go out and do our own. There is something called the Long Island Water Conference, and it's like a consortium of water suppliers across the island. Majority of them, 90% of them, are in Nassau County, but there is a potential of going through a Long Island Water Conference and getting similar pricing. It's just I don't believe that it's always been like a Nassau County thing, and they've always kind of left Suffolk in the lurch. But there are water suppliers in Suffolk, such as South Huntington and Green Lawn and Dix Hills, who use carbon. So that's something we can look into to kind of form a buying power through the Suffolk County districts. Yes.
John, is
Yeah,
it
it's logical to me because I'm looking at this as a long-term maintenance, and this caught us a little bit by surprise that we're doing this sooner than, and I understand we're going through a learning curve here, but certainly it doesn't mean that we're not going to be using this medium for the foreseeable future unless there's a change in some of the technology. So it would make sense over the long term to try to pass that savings on to our customer in the district. These costs are going to keep escalating over time, and I'm just concerned that if we can even that out, even through a long-term contract, you fix the price so we know what's coming.
Typically, if you call Calgon, and I've done it before, and if you call Calgon and say, hey, I heard you have a contract with Town of Huntington, we want to piggyback that, they'd be okay with it. Usually where it falls apart is it falls apart in the towns with their bidding rules and regulations, and it usually falls apart in the purchasing and the attorney's office, because the contracts have to be read a certain way and stuff like that. But that's where I found that they usually fall apart. But Calgon usually, if they have a price out there, they're more than willing to honor it with another district, but usually not Suffolk County's price because it's a little bit lower.
Does the state, John, is there a state bid for granular activated carbon?
I'd have to look into that. I can look into that, actually. That's a good point. I'm not 100% sure, so I can look into that.
Is Suffolk County Water Authority not on the shared services contract?
They typically do their own thing.
Okay, so I was just wondering if that was common practice to, if you're on a shared services contract, to add a little bit for your own pocket, but they're not in the official Suffolk County Shared Services Consortium, I guess.
No, they do their own thing, and they have enough carbon filters out there where, they have a buying power all in their own.
So correct me if I'm wrong, you said that they put a surcharge on it if they're going to share that with other municipalities. So, but their original cost, is that within that 30%? Does it break even for us, or would it add extra cost to us even with their surcharge if their buying power is so much lower than ours?
I'd have to look into the exact numbers and figures. I'm not sure. I imagine that the cost that you're going to get from Calgon is not going to be that much different. It's going to be a matter of cents per pound and not dollars per pound.
Would it make sense, John, to reach out to Suffolk County Water and see if they would waive their surcharge fee? It is a public health type of thing.
It wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, I can do that as well. I can speak with Tim.
You know,
Seems to
it
me
It
that
also
would be
reached-
the right
actually
thing.
help their contract if there's more volume to it.
Yeah, we're certainly doing a lot of work with them right now, so.
And it's
Yeah.
the right thing to do.
No doubt.
It's a refreshing idea, Julie.
It's worth exploring. I mean, look, I know that we're authorizing something like 300,000 to swap out the carbon, but if we can get that number down, and particularly in the future, that's it's worth it.
I'm looking at this shared services agreement in Suffolk County, and the Water Authority does have water testing on there as a shared service. So at least the door is open a little bit on their end.
Yeah. All right, so why don't, if there's no other questions on the granular activated carbon switch out, let's move on. We're still within the header of projects, right? So that's just one. We got a lot of things going on over there in the water district. So I guess let me kick it back to James. You want to move on to another project?
Yeah, well, then we're gonna go into well rehab. That's the other part of that bond authorization that we did, the public hearing. Like I brought up before, 3-1, is in the process and almost finished with its rehab. Like I was saying before, they added 10 feet of column for more submergence to help protect from cavitation. The new bowl, suction pipe, shaft coupling, stuffing boxes, all the components of the well are being looked at or replaced. And then, so hopefully after that, if the capital's still there, we're going to also do Plant 5, which was installed in 2007 and hasn't been touched since. So it's at that point where it should be at least be pulled and looked at, make sure there's nothing going on unforeseen. It did perfect on the pump test, so that's a good thing for us to know that. But we just want to do a visual inspection just to make sure there's nothing going to happen. Do a proactive prevention maintenance to it.
James, was well 3-1, was that the one that was at pumping only at 50% capacity?
It was. I don't think it was 50. I think it was more like 75%. It wasn't
I
running.
thought one of them was at half capacity in field 1.
Field 1 or Plant 3? We're talking about Plant 3.
I'm talking about at field 1 downtown. One of the 3 wells was only pumping at half its capacity, its rated capacity, according to the Verco Bartolucci report.
Now, according to our pump test that we performed last year on all the wells, nothing was that inefficient. It was nothing was at 50% capacity. All the wells are rated for a certain GPM, and then they're tested at that, with pressure head and stuff against them, and none of them performed that bad.
So which is the well you just rehabbed or in the process of rehabbing? That was at field 3?
Yep, that's the one that performed the worst on the pump test. So that's the one we went to right away.
I thought it was like, I don't know. I have to go back and check the report. I thought it was 1-3 or 1-2 that was not pumping at its capacity, not even close. James,
Jay?
Don, do you remember that?
I thought it was the capacity, James, I thought the capacity was reduced when the other 2 wells on site were pumping. So when 1 and 1-3 were pumping, I thought 1-2 began to cavitate, so we had to back off on it a little bit.
I think that what was 1-3, we had the gate down because it was pumping over its capacity. We gated that one down, and obviously when you pump all 3 wells at the same time against the pressure head of the GAC, they all lose a little bit, but it wasn't, all that much.
All right, I could check that from that report, but so well 3-1 is the one you're
Referring to now, yeah.
referring to. Okay, and then you're going to check at field 5.
Yep.
You're going to do wellhead cleaning. Is that what you're going to do?
Yeah, second preventative maintenance. Like you were saying before, it performed excellent on the pump test and its curves and everything, but it was put in 2007 and hasn't been touched since. So we wanted to just pull and make sure there's no unforeseen things going on that we're not seeing.
So that's 14. That's 14 years that well's been in. So we're trying at least at once every 10 years, right? Every year we're trying to do one wellhead.
At least one. Obviously we know the 4 field's probably going to have to be on that 6 to 7 year mark, doing caused by the iron that's in there. We might have to pull those earlier, but we seeing the condition they are when we're pulling them, we could probably go one, every 10 years at least, it could be one, everyone could be pulled.
Yeah, I think the recommendation is once every 7 years, but that's if once every 10, we've got 11 wells right now, right?
Yeah.
All right, so if we did one a year, it would take 11 years to cycle through. And isn't it like, it's like $50,000 or is it less?
All depends on what they find. Usually it's around just to get the cleaning and the basic maintenance, anywhere from like 30 to 50. If they have to start replacing pumps, motors, columns, all that stuff, you can get, upwards above 100. It all depends on how bad they are. But doing this maintenance and preventative maintenance, we should be able to keep stuff low, and not doing any reactive maintenance where things fail in the field during peak season. So that also keeps the cost down in the long run.
Okay. All right, any questions on wellhead or well rehab? All right, James, keep going.
Can I back up for a second, real quickly, on that GAC? I just looked it up. Is Town of Huntington has a contract for carbon, but we value the value. We predicted the value of this contract to be about $240,000. Since it's so high, can we just work off another contract, or do we have to have public bid? And do we have to have 3 bidders? Like, I guess that's more of a question for Jim, but when you're dealing with a contract of over $200,000, does the town require a public bid? Do they require a?
We typically do. I mean, we would require a public bid, but we use we piggyback on these other municipal contracts throughout the state.
Okay.
Even federal government all the time. So if you consider that low, that would probably be something that would come in. It would probably be the winning bidder, assuming based on what you're saying. But we can.
Okay. I just before I just wanted to ask that question, but we can. Sorry, James, you can jump back to projects.
We definitely would not have to bid if we go off of the state contract.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that if we did that under shared contracts and shared services, the whole purpose of that was to prevent that very problem that John's bringing up.
Yeah. I think, but John's question is, do we have to bid it if we go off of a town contract? And I would say yes, we probably would have to, but that company that's doing hunting,
No, but
make sure that they're on our list of bidders.
does the contract in Huntington provide for piggybacking on their contract?
I'd have to look into that. It's
Why don't you look into it? Because if the contracts provide for piggybacking and that price seems better, we don't have to go through the bidding process if it allows other municipalities.
Right. If we think it's the lowest price, I mean, just sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I can. If you have the contract, you can send it to me or Allison, and then we can do research on our side.
Okay, I'll look into that.
Obviously, if you're the contractor, doing the work in Huntington is different than doing the work in Southampton in terms of labor costs or transportation costs and things like that.
Perhaps.
But the things that are bid statewide are contemplated statewide. So, but yeah, it's worth exploring. All right, so we did wells. Let's continue with projects because we've got a bunch more to go, right, James?
Well, the only one I'm really going to bring up, I'm going to leave the rest for John. Last year we did that big 8-inch meter for the atrium, and the turnaround on that meter is supposed to cost, and what we actually reaped the benefit of was tremendous last year. It became didn't even crack the list for the top 10 commercial, and this year was I believe it was number 4 on our top 10. So it goes to show you that meter replacement is crucial to not only us registering how much water we actually use, but also billing properly and getting the capital that is really owed to us with these big meters. So this year we're planning on, the next big one is the 6-inch meter that's by Hampton-based apartments off of Springville. That one is the original meter since that complex was built. I believe it was 20-something, 30 years ago. So that one's been in the ground a long time too, and we predict to have the same outcome as what the 8-inch meter did for us with the 6-inch. The cost of the meter is a little bit less expensive as opposed to 8-inch, and also the labor is not as going to be as intense to put it in as opposed to it was for the 8-inch. So that being said, that's our next big meter replacement. Eventually we're going to have all the meters replaced. That's part of our master plan is to have the meter replacement program commence shortly in the next couple of years. That's basically having every meter changed. But these will help out and go a long way. Also with water conservation, they like to see us changing these meters out. It goes to show you that we'll be able to tabulate the usage a lot more efficiently and get the capital that's owed to us. And, we didn't have any rebuke from the company that we changed the meter. Obviously, their bill, tripled at some points, but they knew it was coming. They were made aware, and we had no issues. And we feel we'll have no issues with this one also.
James, and this is part of the meter replacement program, and we're evaluating district-wide some of the older meters that need to be replaced as part of an ongoing program.
Yeah, we started, obviously it's in our master plan, but once Rich and I kind of took over, we kind of started on our own to do out of our own, out of our allocated budgets to start doing some of these big ones, to catch up almost. We're a little bit behind on it with replacing them. Some have been in the ground 30, 40 years. They're not working as good as they should be. So yes,
Are
it
the
is.
new one's automated in terms of, can you read it without, from a distance electronically or no?
Will work with whatever system we eventually start to go with remotely. They are compatible for that. So if we go in a couple of years down the line, go to a full remote system, these meters will be able to change in or work with our systems that we go with. So that's why it's good to get them at least changed now. We won't have to do it then, but they will work whatever system we end up going through.
All right. I know the two big projects we're going to talk about later, the nitrogen, the iron filtration, and the tank rehab.
Yeah.
So in terms of other projects, and James, I know you're starting to work on the directional drilling prices, right? That's for the canal crossing and the bay crossing.
Yeah, I'll take that one, James. So we're working on that. Our field work is done. We're now just putting the drawings together so we can go to the DEC, the Army Corps of Engineering, Suffolk County, and the town for their environmental permitting. Once we get all that in, then we can wrap up the plans, get them to the county for their approval, and we'll be ready for bidding. And we were thinking that was, depending on how long the environmental permitting takes, but March, April, we should be ready.
And we're under some sort of stipulation with the health department that will replace the bay crossing by a certain date.
March 2022.
Okay, so that's not that far away. So just over a year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And we're on track for that, right?
Yes, sir.
But we're also trying to piggyback it with with crossing the canal too, and so that we believe will solve all the pressure issues east of the Shinnecock Canal.
Yes, sir.
And provide redundancy, right?
Yep, the redundancy and it won't improve the static pressure or the everyday pressure, but it will improve the pressure when a lot of people are using water.
Right, so the issues of people not being able to shower in the morning or flush their toilets, that should be history at that point.
Yeah, I mean, the guy with a 3-story house on the highest point of the hill, still gonna have low pressure on that 3rd floor, but he'll be better on the 1st floor at least.
Okay, like, is there anything he can do to boost his water pressure internally?
Put a pump in, yes.
And people have in that area put their own individual pumps in at I believe the detriment of the neighbors there. If there are a couple of homes pulling water, it's going to drop the pressure more, right?
Yep.
when you say put an individual pump, and you're talking about like a private well, or are you talking about putting some expansion tanks into the property? Off
It's
the-
just a,
It's a similar system. Okay, you did.
no, you go ahead.
It's a
just
similar system to a shallow or deep well where you have a pump and tank set up, where instead of having a well, you have a water main, and the pump, as I understand it, pumps up to pressure and provides, 60 or 50 pounds of pressure for your house all the time. And instead of pulling on a well, it's pulling on a water main.
Pulling on the water main, right,
Mhm.
right. So you're storing city water, so to speak, public water on your property in pressurized tanks, right?
Yeah, there would be a bladder tank in there for the well.
Right. Okay.
Not the well, I'm sorry, for the pump.
For the pump, yeah, that was what was confusing me. So somebody can do that to solve a problem like that individually.
Yes, but it's all for naught if you don't have the volume of water in the road, which we run low on. So the crossing will provide that volume of water.
Right, so this will solve that problem. And if that one individual with the 3-story house on the hill wants to fully fix this problem, he can install a pressurized tank in his basement or whatever.
Yep.
Okay. A bladder tank. All right. All right, let's move on to the next item here, which I have to go find it.
This one's quick. This is the letters to the public. This is just to go over our top 10 and commercial and residential users. I started this last year sending it to the residents. It also goes a long way with our water conservation again, just to show them if they are not aware that they were one of our top 10 users. Last year, I think only 3 out of the 20 letters that I sent out had called us to schedule something to see if there's something else going on. Obviously, the Garden Homes Management, which is our #1 user overall, that's the trailer park. That's across from Wild by Nature in Hampton Bays. I think there's over 80 or 100 units that's in that trailer park, serviced by 1 2-inch meter. It's a nightmare in there between spaghetti lines and how it's fed. I spoke to the management there. I said, you should really think about upgrading, putting a water main in, everything, do it right. They have no interest in doing it. They just want to pay their bill, and that's pretty much where we go with it. We really have no complaints in there, being it's on the west side of town, and that's where most of our water is. So we don't have a water usage problem with them. They are made aware every year that they are the #1. They have been for a long time going back. The other one was Bowen's. Bowen's, that housing complex on the over by McDonald's. They had a tremendous leak last year. That's why they were on the top users. So they were made aware, found the leak. And pretty much after that, it's just people using their irrigation systems on the residential side. Businesses are aware because they're multi-unit complexes and condos on the property, so they do use the water. But it's a good thing just to reach out to the public so they know. Just some people might not know, but usually last year and this year so far, they all pretty much know they use the water and they get billed for it. So.
Did Bowen's fix their leak?
Yep, yeah, it was a good one too, and they were aware, and they apologized. Said there's nothing really you can apologize for. You didn't know it, and plumber came out, found it, and fixed it. And since then, they've been one of the top users, just not #2 like they were last year.
Got it. Thank you.
That's pretty much all we had to cover on the letters to the public. We'll go over the other letter, the deferral letter at the bottom.
All right, so let's move on then to field 4.
Yeah, I'll let John.
The 2 big projects going on there.
All right, so the 2 projects at Field 4, one is the tank repaint of the Bellows Pond Road tank. Work is actively going on. They're about 90% complete with blasting and priming on the inside. They're doing they're putting in a new manway at the bottom of the tank today. So once that's in, they can complete the blasting and priming of the interior, and that will just really leave the final coat to be done on the interior. On the exterior, they're about 50% complete with blasting and priming. Once they're blasted and complete with priming, there's something called a stripe coat where they paint the welds, and then over the top of that goes the final coat. Contractor still feels that he'll make be done by the end of March. So we're going on that schedule that by the end of March, we should be complete, barring any really, really cold spells or big snowstorms and stuff like that. That's going to slow us down.
John, the contractor on that project, the low bid, I mean, I think we had some questions because I think a lot of the experience was like on bridges and things like that. We have somebody monitoring to make sure the surfaces are prepped and primed correctly.
Yep, we have either Victor or Paul from my office are out there. Before they prime anything, after they blast, they call for something called the blast inspection. So we go out there, we make sure that the surface is right, that there's no old paint, that there's no corrosion or spotty rust on it before they prime it, so it goes on correctly.
Did we ever figure out what happened the last time this was done? Why those coatings prematurely started delaminating?
I don't know for sure, but from my understanding is that they feel that they applied the coating on the interior on steel that wasn't prepared correctly. So it wasn't blasted, then coated. It was blasted, it was let to sit. There was a sheen of corrosion on it, and then they painted over the top of that. So it didn't
So
get
we're
that
not going to repeat that mistake.
No.
Right, and this gets a coating of fiberglass, right, John, on the inside of the tank?
Say that one more time.
It gets a coating of fiberglass on the inside of the tank.
Epoxy. It's an epoxy. Yeah, it's an epoxy coating
Okay.
that goes in on to a pretty sufficient mill thickness. So it's a two-part epoxy. That's
So the
VOC
primer
free.
is a primer for the epoxy.
Yes, the primer is just the primer adheres to the steel, and then the epoxy adheres to that primer. It's a system that goes hand in hand.
All right, any questions about the tank resurfacing? The whole thing is tented, John?
The whole thing is tented. Yep.
Hopefully somebody's getting some pictures of it all.
We have a lot.
If I can interject quick, just to let you know that the guys from H2M, Paul, Arthur, Victor, Robert, all the guys on this project have really been doing an excellent job of following up with us being on this company. Every day I get an email with what happened, how many men were on the field, what part of the inspection passed, what part of the blast failed, pictures, updates, phone calls. Every 2 weeks we do a phone-in meeting. These guys are really on top of this company. They don't let them get away with absolutely anything. They don't let anything slide. They're up on their upkeep at the well field. They're doing a really fantastic job on making sure this job gets done right.
Do you or John know, did they replace the safety cable going up the ladder there at Field 4?
That'll be one of the final things they do. They're not using it to climb. They're using lifts to climb. So that'll be one of the final things they do after the coating is applied.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on the Field 4 tank rehabilitation? All right. Let's move on to the iron and manganese filtration.
So the iron and manganese is progressing. There's 3 contracts. There's a general contractor who's doing site and building, an electrical contractor, and then a plumbing contractor. So the general contractor has poured all his concrete for the foundation, the footing, and the slab. Block is supposed to arrive on site today, and they're supposed to start constructing the walls today, which would follow quickly by the roof. The plumber is on site doing his site piping. We just found out about a week ago that the vessels that we thought, iron vessels that we thought were scheduled to be for delivery on February 5th have been delayed. Apparently the tank house is attributing it to a breakout in COVID in their factory in South Carolina. So they're predicting now a 2-month delay in the tank delivery. So right now we're kind of moving things around and just making sure that, we're doing things in a different order. We're doing a little bit more site piping and some of the internal stuff in the well building. And so when those tank vessels do come, we're ready to connect and go. So it's a little bit, it's a big delay in our contract. It's an 8-week delay in what we thought we were. So we're going to do our best to still meet that date and get this thing up and running by mid-May. We are, though, however, making provisions just in case something else happens, more delays happen, that we'll be able to use the wells at a certain point of the day and then switch over and do our startup and testing. And then, so we're not going to lose the wells for the summer. We're making those provisions now.
Right, you'll be able to use them without the filtration potentially.
Yep, we don't want to, but if we have to, we will.
Okay, but we've seen the numbers come down a little bit in that field as well, right? Or is it still right below that, what is it, the 1 milligram per liter level of combined iron and manganese?
It's below the combined, it's at like a 0.9. So we're
close.
down. We're flirting.
It's close.
It's close,
But so it is where we can use it.
yes.
All right. All right. Any questions on the iron manganese filtration piece of it?
Yeah, I do. John, are you oxidizing as part of this filtration?
Yep, we use chlorine to oxidize.
Okay.
And are we going to be, are the staff, are they going to be fully trained on this new piece of equipment in terms
Yes,
of how to
without a
use
doubt.
it?
We have experience with it, so we'll be there to train them, but we are going to bring in the manufacturer who can show them how everything's done. There'll be manuals for them. The controller who's doing the control work, the process controls is Eagle Control, and they're very familiar with it. So the district is very familiar with Eagle. So even when the manufacturer and the contractors leave, that we're here for them. Eagle Control is here from them, and
How often is that going to need to be changed, the filtration media?
10 or 12 years.
Oh, really? It lasts
Yeah.
that long?
It lasts a long time, yeah.
Gets backwashed too, so you gotta remember.
Yeah, it gets backwashed and
Oh, it gets backwashed like a pool filter. Okay.
Exactly.
And then what it's filtering out is natural, so we don't have to worry so much about that.
it's natural. It's just high concentrations of naturally occurring iron. And in fact, we're blowing off into a recharge basin that's on site since there are no public sewers available. The DEC has now come down and said they just want us to put in a well to monitor the iron in the groundwater to make sure that we're not causing a bigger problem than already exists. So we have to put a little, it's like an 80-foot well in just to monitor the iron in the groundwater, but make sure it doesn't leach into the aquifer.
Okay.
It's part of what's called a Speedies permit.
Sure. I mean, in general, iron's not bad for you.
No.
It's more of an aesthetic issue.
Yes.
All right. Any other questions about iron manganese filtration? All right. All right. So what's next on the agenda with you guys? Is there? We're talking about the deferral letter. Okay. So, yeah, and this literally, you may have gotten some calls. People may have gotten some calls about this issue because of, the public outreach that's going on related to this one detection of PFAS or PFOA at Field 3. So, who wants to talk about that?
I'll start it up this to refresh everybody's memory. August of last year, the state came down with drinking water standards for PFOA, PFOS, 10 parts from a 70 advisory level They created an MCL. It wasn't an MCL until August of last year. Our September sample of 3 field showed a detection in 3.2, but below the 10, and a detection in 3.3 of a 40.9. Excuse me, 40.9
Parts per trillion.
part per trillion. So multiple retests after that showed a non-detect. We don't know why. The state doesn't know why. The Suffolk County Board of Health doesn't know why that happened. Either it was there and now gone. It was an anomaly, a bad sample, something wrong with the lab, something wrong with our test. But the state still sees that as a 40.9. They won't throw it away. So to avoid a violation, we had to apply for what's called a deferral, which you all should have got a copy of the application that John and I worked on. The application was approved. We got the deferral, but we only had the deferral to August 26th of this year. So with that deferral, we also had to submit a strict and aggressive timeline to show what we're going to do to remediate the issue if need be. We're hoping that this test was an anomaly and that once we use the wells vigorously in the peak demand season, that this detection won't come back. But there's still the underlying issue that we do have some sort of detection, confirmed detection in 3.2, but below the 10 parts. I think the highest we were was an 8, and right now it's at like a 6. So part of that deferral approval, we had to reach the public. We did obviously the swift reach call out to all of our customer base. It was in the press today. It's going on the billing. There's a link direct to the deferral on our, and also on our website. I answered about 13 or 15 calls yesterday regarding this deferral, explaining them in detail what it was about, and every single customer was made aware, and they were happy with the fact that we're being proactive with this and not reactive, so to speak. But with
James,
that,
I just want to add 2 things to that. One is we don't believe that the well that tested above the 10 parts per trillion, we don't believe that within the system of water that people are drinking, that the water they were consuming was anywhere near that. That what happens is it gets blended. So even if the well actually was at 40 whatever parts per trillion, the combined level was likely well below the 10 parts per trillion, right, James? That's
that's what I was going to say, is that in the deferral, it clearly states in the deferral, which was written by the state, that the water was still acceptable for all users. It was never in danger of being above that 10.
Yeah.
In fact, that our retest have showed it.
I feel like
and then we took that well out of service, but we've been testing all 3 wells there every month now. Is that correct?
That's part of the new thing that we have to test monthly, but we started it early before that came down. And since then, that well has been non-detect. We're trying to simulate demand on the well, similar to what would be in the spring or early summer. We're running it to waste and then testing it thereafter. So we're not running it to system. But it's hard for us to really put that hard demand on it. There's no one where to put that water. So, but since doing that demand, it has been non-detect.
Which well is that again?
That's 3.3 where the one anomaly happened at.
But 3.2, you're getting detects as well, but below
Correct.
the
Below.
threshold.
Yeah. So we're hoping it either stays that level and we can go ahead and move forward with blending as an option, approved option. But according to our timeline, we have to show that we're doing something. And on our timeline is what's called an engineering report. And from there, I'll let John kind of take over and explain further detail what's going on with that.
So just to summarize, we know we have the PFAS, PFOA, and in 3.2, albeit at less than 10 parts per trillion. 3.3, we're going to run, and we think it might be related to pumpage, but we're going to find that out. So in the meantime, what we told the state that we would do is that we would increase the monitoring on the wells. So instead of doing quarterly monitoring, we're doing monthly monitoring on all 3 wells for all contaminants, all perfluorinated contaminants. The other thing that we told them that we would do is we would evaluate the water in relation to pumpage and then prepare an engineering report kind of outlining where we go, like what is the proper, if there is PFAS and PFOA and it's true, what is the proper treatment, what is the proper wellhead treatment, and how are we going to implement it and when. So the first step would be an engineering report. That engineering report will outline all the details of a treatment system. And from there, it would go into design and construction. So we're not sure if we're going to go to design. We're not sure if we're going to go to construction. I think it all depends on, one, what are the levels in 3.3? And we're going to find that out as we continue to pump it. And 2 is if Suffolk County and New York State allow blending as an option. If they allow blending as an option, then, we can theoretically take the well at 3.2 and turn it and make it go from a 7.5 to a 2.5 by making it the last on at the site. But if they say blending's not an option, we just have to wait and see where the levels at 3.2 go. We've seen as high as a 8, I believe. And the last round we saw was a 6.3. So it's just a matter of if 3.2 ever increases a little bit and goes to a 10, the well is lost. We won't be able to use that at all.
I'm sorry, I didn't follow, John. Which one are you thinking we might not be able to use anymore? 3.2 or 3.3?
3.2, it looks like the one that has the real problem in it. It definitely has samples that have come up positive, have come up detectable, and we've had follow-up samples that have all been detectable. So
when you say, so you're thinking just taking, if it goes above the 10 parts per trillion, you think he was taking it out of service permanently or putting in filtration?
We would have to put in filtration by August 2021, or if we request a extension of the deferral, August 2022.
Now, can we get through the summer with, let's say, 2 out of the 3 wells at that field working?
I believe that once we have the 4 field back online, being that the west side of town has so much water and so much pumping capacity on that side of town, and with the 1 million gallons tank water that we'll have back online, if it came down to it, we would be able to get through the season. The pumps are just going to pump a little bit more or longer, being that when the 4 field ran during peak season, it only ran from the hours of, let's say, 11 p.m. to about 4 a.m. because that's when the peak demand was to try to fill the tanks. And then the tank would get satisfied, and then those wells would be off. So those wells essentially would just run a little bit longer and pick up where 3.2 left off. But like John was saying, we have the deferral it's good till August, so we can technically run that well through August, until that date if we had to. And if we didn't get an extension, then we would shut the well off. But we wouldn't run that well by itself. We would blend it with the other one so that essentially going to system wouldn't be a violation if the state and then Suffolk County.
So
we had
just to be clear, I'm Tavis. Hello,
Yeah, I can hear you, John. I was going to ask a question, but go ahead.
can you guys hear?
Yeah.
Because the question you're talking about, in the letter from the Department of Health that you all received, you submitted an action plan to them as part of the agreement for the deferral, correct?
Correct.
Is this what you're talking about right now with us?
Yes.
What is in the plan?
Correct. The next plan, what John was stating, is that we have to fund a engineering report. That's the next step, because in April we have to do what's called basically a check-in to the state. Say, this is what we've done since our detection. This is what we've reached out to our customer base. this is what we've done to notify everybody, and this is our next step. We're either in the process of completing the engineering report. The engineering report is complete. This is what we found. We submit it to the state, and they say, okay, you're awarded still the deferral, and then we have to check in again quarterly with them with updates. And obviously, it's all outlined in the agenda which we submitted to them. So we have to meet those dates, or basically they can impose a fine at any moment or revoke the deferral if we don't meet those stringent agendas.
All right, have you forwarded your corrective action plan to us? Because
Correct.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, we submitted it to, I believe it was yesterday, I sent it over.
Okay, so okay, we just got it, because everything that this is based on is that you had to have submitted that previously.
It was a part of it. It was also a part of the deferral application, which I submitted to the board before we submitted it to the state. Everybody from the board got a copy.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just so for the public's interest, just so it's clear that what you're doing here.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned because we have the detects at 3.2 and we had the one detect at 3.3. It sounds like we could sort of hobble by with one well down, but it doesn't sound good if we had to put two wells down. We'd have some real serious problems. Do we have any contingency plans? I know Suffolk County Water Authority, they have a portable GAC filter. Are there ones out there? Is it something that we could rent from somewhere if we had to, if it continued to be a problem? Would it be worth finding out and getting some prices? If that's on an emergency basis, maybe it's a question for John.
Last I talked to Suffolk County, and albeit it was last year, you got to imagine they have the same problem going on. So all their emergency vessels were in use. Imagine they have the same problem as Hampton Bays does with multiple wells with perfluorinateds, but they also have multiple wells with 1,4-dioxane, which you need GAC to quench hydrogen peroxide when you're done. So last I spoke to them, which again was last year, they were utilizing all of their portable treatment systems. But again, does it hurt to ask? No, it doesn't hurt to ask.
Are they the only game in town? Is there other companies that have GAC filters that can be rented?
There's a company that I had. Yes, there's definitely a company that out there that can rent this equipment.
All right, we might want to price it out just as an emergency plan. It sounds like we can go without one well, but probably not without two. So we would have some lead time, I would think, if both of those wells go above the 10 parts per trillion. I'm hoping that that's not the case. Hoping we don't have to spend another $1 million on carbon filtration. But obviously there's some red flags here. So,
And given the location of the parcel, it could very well be an issue with the highway being just to the north of this piece. If there was any serious accidents and fires on the highway that needed to be extinguished.
Yeah, the way I looked at that is there's a recharge basin not too far to the west. It could have been a car fire where foam ran into the recharge basin. Maybe illegal dumping. From what I understand from somebody from the health department years ago, Bellows Pond Road used to be a popular place for septic trucks to run and maybe do some illegal dumping. Maybe not a problem now, but long ago in the past, it could have been a problem. But yeah, I mean, until we figure out the source and yeah, this one's not gonna be as easy to locate the source.
it may though also pass right by. It might be a moment in time.
Could be.
Yeah. All right, well, we're monitoring every month. So just if you could keep us posted. Meanwhile, That one well 3.3, was taken out of service in September, is that right?
Correct. September 9th.
September of last year, and so we haven't put that back into service, but it keeps testing with non-detects.
Right.
Are we allowed to put it into service?
Yeah, we're actually allowed to run all the wells until August 26th without a violation.
All right, so when do you plan on putting 3.3 back into service?
We have one more round of samples that went back that we want to make sure with the demand on them that nothing else pops up, and then we're going to put it back in service and put a demand on it for a while and do our monthly testing to see if anything else comes to fruition from that.
Okay.
But all the wells, technically, we are allowed to run all the wells at that plant right now.
Until August, though, right?
Correct. Well, hopefully we can ask for an extension. Like John
I
was
was gonna
saying.
say August is not great. It's the middle of the summer.
It's end of August, September. You know, you're pushing it there. You know, July and the beginning of August is our home run hitting pumping. So, if we can get through that peak demand and hopefully this, we really don't know which way it goes. We can hope for the best, expect the worst. But I think the real thing coming out of this is that the board and us have to commit to an engineering report is the next step. So one, it covers us for the state, and two, we'll have something in place then. If need be, we need to go for filtration. We already have that part done. We're not lagging on that part, and we can go ahead and move forward for treatment.
Is that what the engineering report, John, is basically the design of a filtration system?
No, it's identifying it's a requirement of the state and the county. It's basically identifying what treatment is right, and justifying the need for the wellhead treatment.
It's a lot of work for basically just one sample that might have been a lab error.
I agree. And it is a lot of work for one sample that could have been a lab error, but I think at well 3.2, it's there, it's real. They're all screened at the same depth. They're all in close proximity to each other. It's odd that we're getting it in one and not the other ones. So.
But it's a requirement for our deferral to do this engineer's report, correct?
If we want an extension on the deferral, yes.
Okay, thanks.
And what would it mean to not get an extension on deferral? We'd have to turn those wells that well would have to go out of service, right?
We were over the
Well, you could still run the well, but if you got a detection over 10 parts, it would be a violation. It would be public notification. It would be similar to what we went through at Plant 1.
But now, can you talk a little bit about, maybe this is back to James, but the public notification that we were required to do because of that August of last year test on well 3.3?
Yeah, it was basically to make the public aware that we were awarded a deferral, and basically went into explaining that we had a detection above the MCL. We're not in a violation. That's what the deferral is defers to a later date. We're not in violation. We're not facing any fines. It explains that our water is safe to drink. And it's basically the deferral is our promise to the public and to the state that we're going to do whatever needs to be done to either remediate the issue if need be, or show a course of action plan that we're able to run this well if it passes, through the state blended, that putting out in system, we won't be above the MCL.
So to notify the public, you did a robocall and you posted it. Can you just talk a little bit about what you did?
We initially put it in the press, which released today. We did a robocall stating that we received a deferral. To read the deferral in its entirety, go to our website. It's going on every customer's bill. We bill quarterly, but in the top right-hand corner, there's going to be a direct link to the deferral. They can read it from there. Obviously, it's on our website. And the Board of Health, the New York State Board of Health, approved this method. They like to see if you're able to do a mailer to each customer, but being that getting the deferral drawn up and written up, this was the easiest and quickest way to get it to everybody, besides doing a mailer, which takes a couple weeks to develop and get it out to the printer. So we had to meet a strict date of February 6th to get this out to the public. So we met that date. We're in compliance with that date. So now it's moving on to the next part of the agenda.
But the
And I
health
got my call last night, so thank you.
You're welcome.
So James, what you're referring to is the Department of Health letter that states the conditions of the deferral process. It can be revoked at any time if you don't meet sec 1, 2, and 3. And sounds like you've met 1. You'll go through 2 and 3 with us. I assume just for the public's edification, you're following a guideline that was provided by the Department of Health, and you're doing the job. So, good.
Yeah.
Glad that's happened.
Yeah, we're being very proactive with this. Obviously we're not the only water district on the island or in the state that's going through this. There's a lot, reason being of the deferral because of the 10 parts that came so quickly. The state is giving water districts across the island and the state time to develop this course of action. So, we were hoping for a 2-year deferral. We only got the year, but like John said, we can ask for an extension if we're showing good faith to do the right thing. We're hoping that, come that time in August or July when we ask for an extension, they award it to us so that we can hopefully look into this more, get some more data collected from the wells to make sure that it was an anomaly, that it's not going to spike. And hopefully we can, not go for treatment, but if we have to, we'll be ready.
Yeah, and that's all dependent on the reporting requirements that they've laid on you to do that so that they can monitor it from a distance. So it seems very straightforward to me.
Anyone else on the health department deferral? But so James, they signed off on our public notice approach.
Yeah, I talked to Josh Mednick of the Suffolk County Board of Health Services. He's kind of been our contact to the state. I sent him a memo stating what we're going to do, and they gave him a verbal and a written okay that was suffice for reaching to the public.
And you said you've only gotten about 12 calls of concern about it.
Yeah, it wasn't really a concern. Is that the call out goes out kind of quick, and sometimes people pick up their phones kind of late. It's in the middle of the call. They kind of catch just our phone number, so they kind of just calling saying, "Hey, what was that call about?" I spent 5-10 minutes on the phone explaining in depth kind of like what we're talking about. And everybody understood why we had to do it. And, they appreciated that we're taking the right steps and course of action to remediate the issue if it shall arise.
Okay. All right. So I think we've covered a lot of things. So that was the last item on the agenda. Any other water district issues? I'll bring up one, and I'm not sure how we approach this, but we're still in the pandemic, and God, first of all, thank you guys for working through the pandemic. You guys you are essential workers. I hope you guys have qualified under the state's requirements so that you can get vaccinated. If not, they really should allow you guys to get vaccinated because you are dealing directly with the public and are critical in terms of infrastructure. But the point I was really going to make was prior to the pandemic, we really talked about doing like town hall type of meetings where you guys would be able to answer questions from the public. You might have to wait till after the pandemic, but I hope we get back to at least once a year, or maybe twice a year, maybe at the Hampton Bays Community Center or wherever it is, or the firehouse, people can come down with their questions, even if nobody shows up. It's just like a listening session, just to make yourselves completely available to the public with whatever concerns that they might have. They get to meet you, get to ask you questions. I thought that was a good recommendation. And then they get to find out all the good things that you guys are doing and how you're, your knowledge base and how you're trying to address some of the health issues and some of the physical issues in terms of pressure or discoloration. I think it would be good to have a public session like that. But we might just have to wait till after the pandemic. But any thoughts on that?
I think it'd be great. I know we wanted to do it last year. We talked about it at beginning of the year, and obviously the pandemic arose, so we put that aside. We kicked around the whole Zoom thing. I like Zoom. You know, don't get me wrong, it works well through this, but I think it's better to be in person when you're talking about stuff to this magnitude of what's going on. So I kind of put off with suggesting the Zoom thing. I'd rather meet in person at least once, show face and explain in detail, you know, show pictures or PowerPoint, you know, in person. And it makes it easier for people to go in person other than trying to log onto a computer and seeing, you know, somebody's face instead of seeing the body.
You can present to, you can reach out to the Hampton Bays CAC and the Hampton Bays Civic and do presentations there too. That's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Because they already have a,
That, Jay.
the Civic's got a pretty big membership.
Yeah.
To have them, have you guys on the agenda one day,
Sure.
that would be good. Tommy John, do you have something you want to say on this?
I do. You know, we added another board, Hampton Bays Board of Trustees meeting this year. Thank you for doing that. And I would like to say to the administration, you know, Rich and James, that if there are issues that you feel that we need to hear, you know, these meetings are public, they're recorded, they're on our website, the press watches them as well. You know, we could have non-scheduled, you know, we could put out the notification and have the meeting to get information out to the public and make the, you know, to make us aware of some of the things that are happening with the water district rather than having to wait for the meeting. I would be fine with that. It doesn't have to be incredibly long, but, you know, we have a lot of capital projects going on and a lot of other things happening in the water district as well. So if you feel like something's important, you know, please contact us and we'll have a meeting at least in this form.
Great. Yeah, like the one in May is going to be crucial because we're going to have a lot of timelines that we're going to cross before that May meeting. So it actually falls in good, you know, this setup. The February was great to bring up this stuff. Now the May one coming up is going to be great because we have the check-in and approval from the state. And we'll be able to bring that forth shortly thereafter. And the project updates will happen then too. So I think the scheduling right now falls perfect with our schedule, how we're going to meet. But yeah, I'll note that if we do need to bring up anything important, for sure, we'll reach out.
Anything else? Other issues, water district issues? Rick, do you have any questions?
So I just wanted to say thank you to James and to Rich and to Warren because they truly are our ambassadors on the street. I know James can't go to a T-ball game without answering 4 or 5 questions about the water district. I think those guys do a great job, especially during the pandemic. They've had to work every day. They've had a few scares. So, you know, I want to say thank you and, you know, keep up the good work. Please be in touch with the board. We want to support you and we want to make sure that you can continue to work efficiently. So thank you again for everything and, you know, really use the board to your best advantage.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Can I ask in terms of pipe integrity, just a question real quick, are we seeing more water main breaks or it's been a pretty mild winter, but we did have a couple of really very cold days, but I know we had that one break a while back out on, was it Shinnecock Road out by Rampasture area?
Springville.
Springville, thank you, Springville Road. You know, I was a little bit concerned about the pipe integrity and why that one shattered. We felt that was the hammer effect from somebody opening a hydrant. But are we where we suspect to be in terms of water main breaks? I know the earth shifts a little bit. We get breaks every once in a while, but are we seeing more than normal or is it pretty expected?
Pretty much status quo. The last couple we've seen, obviously you saw the one in Springville. We had one in East Diana at the end of last year. We're finding that they're on the joints where the couplings are basically in the pipes, where the pipes meet, and they're in groundwater spots. So obviously in groundwater, the pipes are going to move up and down over time. And then at a joint where they flex a little bit, they're going to give way, and that's where you're going to see those lateral cracks. And that's where we saw maybe with the help of some water hammering on Springville, and that's what we saw on East Diana. But other than those 2 substantial ones, wasn't really that substantial, the one on East Hyannis. We have seen minor service line leaks where people's customers have oxidation of their water lines, old copper lines. If they have a faulty neutral one day, the current actually travels the water line and oxidizes the water line and actually creates a pinhole leak. Nothing out of the ordinary. It's pretty much the same. You know, we roll the dice every year with the cold, but the pipes are holding up strong. We have no issues with breaks happening in the same area multiple times. They've been sporadic in different areas, parts of the town. So
In terms of staffing levels, you guys have what you need to manage?
yeah, I mean, we lucked out, knock on wood, with the COVID so far. We only had one person who became positive, and then nobody else got infected. And myself, I had to quarantine for a couple of weeks. But other than that, we've been holding strong.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, we'll let you go. Thank you. It was a very comprehensive update. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
So if there's no other business, I'll make a motion to adjourn this meeting of the Hampton Bays Water District Commissioners. Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. Okay, we are adjourned.